Well, everything I wanted to not happen in this country has happened. I feel I did my part, put some effort into it. So, what am I referring to? Having society in this country begin to doubt and rise up against itself, its own institutions that for decades, years have protected us from both foreign and domestic danger. So now, whenever we don't agree with factual findings, we claim there is corruption, but only seem to do so when it's the opposing party that's in charge. There was a time when the FBI or the Department of Justice was respected and adhered to, a time where we took seriously what we were told. Sure, the government has always had its flaws and always will, but to think it is all bad now because they tell you is simply moronic. It is not all bad and definitely not all good. I don't want us as a country to allow the position of the presidency to be trampled on, allowing the most divisive, belligerent behavior to take that office. What happened to a role model? Isn't the presidency the most exemplary form of how an American should be? I get people want change, but I feel a lot of it was being convinced that things were worse than what they really were. And everyone forgot what happened in a once in a lifetime global pandemic and the ramifications it had on our economy and our well being. And I always have said this since Facebook became like MySpace, the social media I believed was a cancer to society. Sure, there's good information and entertaining, hilarious videos that we enjoy, but we can't ignore the amount of misinformation that exists and the minds that it sweeps away. So, why would this country choose a candidate that has already proven he's committed crimes? Crimes against our own institutions, a person who's mishandled the pandemic so egregious that now it looks like they're estimating around 400,000 or so deaths that could have been prevented had it been handled better. Someone who has been linked to millionaires, sexual predators, and never lived the life of a middle or lower class citizen in their entire life. That's who the people chose, if in fact the election was legitimate. So, again, why this choice? I've asked myself, why was everybody fooled this bad? Did people really no longer care about preserving decency in the highest seat in the world? Or was it the hate for the opposition so great that it warranted to risk our own democracy? The waters we swim through, information from our devices, and having become so murky now, it's impossible to find any clarity. Even harder to realize how deep into the trenches we've allowed ourselves to get. Just know one thing: an ongoing tactic that has been persistent in those seeking power and seeking to rule, they will discredit. They will discredit anything and everything that challenges them or disagrees with them. And unfortunately, it appears these oncoming billionaires, this oligarchy, along with the first Fallon president, have succeeded in doing that, in making you doubt and disbelieve everything they want you to. Discrediting those with even within their inner circle, even lifelong service members who have devoted their lives to upholding the Constitution and protecting our country. Even those now you lost faith in for the sake of buying into those smoke screens that they surround you with. Immigrant crime, that's false. Transgenders all over, trying to transgender your child, that's less than 1% of the population. We all know that. This, along with big tech that has been folding now and fell in place to this administration, agreeing to allow misinformation now on their platforms. What was the quid pro quo there? Why are they doing that? Why are they giving in? For one, it does keep big tech away from lawsuits, Senate hearings, federal and state restrictions, which in turn benefits their fortune. And the politicians that allow this can use these same platforms. They could fill it up with misinformation and use it as a weapon to help them keep getting elected, and keep staying in power. That's what I see the quid pro quo is. The fact that so many billionaires have fallen in line should be a cause of concern, but it's not. Maybe this is the karma for or the great repercussion for Bernie Sanders being ousted in 2016. Either way, the future looks bleak to me. See, I grew up proud to be an American. I grew up proud to see America always coming together in times of tragedy, in times of crisis and distress, and overcoming, helping others, supporting each other, and having the necessary resources you need to make a living in this country. These factors that made this country great, in my eyes, of course, seem to have all but disappeared with every reel that we swipe through. Our social media platforms ingesting the tidbits of information that seem to now do more harm than good. The internet and social media, and as we have seen, can be great and gives everyone an opportunity, gives everyone a voice, to be able to voice their opinion. But maybe that isn't beneficial. Maybe I don't need to know the hate and the anger that exists around every corner. Maybe some ideas, some opinions are better kept in that person's mind. Nonetheless, here we are exposing our minds to these thoughts and the opinions that contaminate our very own thoughts. It seems like now this country it's a society that's built on expressing negative thoughts. This great country now has a society that's built on expressing negative thoughts and hatred. Wherever we've allowed our leaders, where we have allowed our leaders to demonize the vulnerable, insult those that don't agree with us, even the ones in Congress, the leaders that are supposed to represent, they're supposed to represent us, insulting someone's intelligence because they don't agree with their view. To me, insulting someone's intelligence because they don't agree with your view is shallow. It's a lack of integrity. But that has, as we've seen, become the norm. Since we've normalized a president who looks to attack, to demean, to insult at any moment, with no regard for certain people due to their political affiliation, because of their political affiliation. To me, there's nothing American in that. Nothing. Have we grown immune to this negative and hateful rhetoric? When, and this is where I'm at right now with this. When did we become so complacent on allowing this type of behavior in every level that you wouldn't want to see in your own children or in your own family? Maybe electing somebody like Trump now, after the history, after everything we've known about him, after everything we've seen and heard, is the prime example of how we have lost our moral value as a society to the point that we've accepted somebody of that character. So, as a prideful American and a Christian, the one thing, of course, we never lose is hope. And I know that someday we'll look back on this and history books and this disgraceful takeover by the leaders that are supposed to look after us. Someday we're going to look back and see how did this happen? See how this takeover happened. And hopefully someday, once again, in the future, not too far from now, we could be the United States of America instead of the divided States of America. So that was my main gripe. That's what I wanted to get off my chest more than anything else is seeing how they've succeeded in discrediting everything, every institution. There was a stat that in the 70s, 60s or 70s, around 70% of Americans trusted the government. Right now, it is around 20%. I get it to a certain point. But when it suits you, just for your argument that, oh, they're corrupt, oh, it's a conspiracy, and you attach to any conspiracy, you can't just live off that. That's never going to work. I don't know how people are at ease or have peace thinking that everything in the government or in the country is after them. And I honestly did not believe back in 2015 and 2016, every time there was a story about Trump or anybody that surrounded him, he would discredit them. They would dig in and see where they could find a reason to blame and to discredit anything that that person was saying. And we've seen now that they're trying to defund public broadcasting radio stations. They're trying to pretty much silence anybody that goes against them. I don't want to get into how I believe we've fallen into a full fascist type authoritarian state now, but it is something that I felt was coming if we continue to believe this person. And that's what I didn't think was going to happen. That's why I didn't believe that could even happen, that we were going to believe him every time he discredited. Now the FBI has no credibility. Now the CIA, the Department of Justice, the Homeland Security, any kind of program, now even the courts, even the judges that are appointed by him, that are Republican, like now everything, every single thing and every single institution was against him. Come on. Even the search warrant was supposedly fake. It was just made to attack him, even though a judge he appointed was the one who signed off on the search warrant at his Mar-a-Lago home for those classified documents. So we're believing this former celebrity and now politician over every institution, over every lifelong serving American veteran, all these people that have devoted their lives to preserving the Constitution and dedicating their lives and their jobs to be an integral part of this country and what makes this country great. Now, forget all of them, forget all of what they said. As soon as they dare to speak something against him, they're woke, they're liberal, they're... So here's what I was saying also about discrediting. I want to play this clip that I found, and I think it's right on point.
Key issue is that democracy is based on trust, whereas dictatorship is based on terror. If you systematically destroy trust in institutions, destroy trust in the media, in academia, in the courts, and so forth, some people think that this is liberating the people from these institutions.
Right.
It's not. When you destroy all trust, the only thing that can still work is a dictatorship. Right. So this is what would-be dictators do. They systematically destroy trust. And the other thing to realize is that the vast majority of information is not truth. A key misconception, especially in places like Silicon Valley, is to equate information with truth. Most information is junk. I mean, the truth is a very rare and costly and precious sub-kind of information, because, to write a truthful story, you need to invest a lot of time and effort and money in research and fact-checking, whereas fiction is very, very cheap.
So exactly what he said. They come with this narrative that they're liberating you, that you're being brainwashed and you're falling into their trap. So here we're going to come liberate you from this machine, from the status quo, from the establishment. And that's the lie that they tell you, so you can feel like you're empowered now to believe them. But everything he said was on point. And that's exactly what I've been saying. Discredit every institution, so now you don't know what the truth is. So now you're going to believe them even more now. So just to end on this note, the reason and what I feel that I've been saying or trying to express is that given the social media and the internet, I think everybody being exposed to such negativity, it's really desensitized us as Americans, as a society, and we no longer feel what before we would have felt, what before would have been too much or crossing the line. Now we joke about it. Now there's funny reels. If this Diddy thing would have happened 10 years ago, everybody would have been outraged. You would have felt too, how do you say, you would have felt gross even making jokes about it too much, just because the whole situation is that gross. But now we've been desensitized, and now we're accepting someone doing the Nazi salute, in this country. They did it twice. You could argue all you want, but going back to the desensitization of society, I read where there was someone that interviewed the Nazis that worked in the Holocaust, the ones that were involved. They were interviewed to see what they had in common. How could they be involved in that and perform? And this is what the the doctor that interviewed him said. I told you once that I was searching for the nature of evil. I think I've come close to defining it, he said. A lack of empathy. It is the one characteristic that connects all the defendants, all of the Nazi soldiers. A genuine incapacity to feel what their fellow man, with their fellow man. He said, evil, I think, is the absence of empathy. So that I think it's a masterful quote because it's true. And I believe it's what this country is suffering from, a lack of empathy. I mean, yeah, there are still some. No one wants to see the ICE raids and families getting separated and lives getting turned upside down and torn apart. But that's just recently. For the most part, everybody's like, oh, well, it's not happening to you. It's not affecting you. Yeah, there was a Nazi salute. Yeah, he said this about these kind of people. But so I think this is the evidence kind of what I've been feeling. And I stumbled upon this quote that I feel fits what's going on in this country right now and how we've come to a pretty much fascist state of government. I mean, I could go on talking about day one, Nazi salute, day two, attack somebody that spoke in the church about empathy and mercy, and, so on and so forth. There's been 1,500 criminals released that attacked the Capitol. One of them was already killed by a cop in a traffic stop. He resisted arrest. He had a gun. The cop shot him and killed him. These are people that shouldn't have been out. They literally attacked cops. They pleaded guilty. They used weapons. They're caught on camera. It's not debatable. No, there's not enough outrage for these kinds of acts and all these executive orders. So yeah, as a society, I think it might continue to get worse before it gets better, but eventually we'll turn the corner and we'll start maybe improving as a society. We to not be void of that empathy. Evil is the absence of empathy. And as a Christian, it's demoralizing to see fellow Christians, fellow brethren from my community be so in favor of such discrimination, such in favor of laws and restrictions that are damning or hurtful to people. Because our job, whether we agree with people's lifestyles, is not to make sure that they suffer. So I think we need to do better as a society. I think eventually there'll be some kind of coming together, almost like an uprising against big tech. Now it's big tech is on one side, and everything mainstream media right now is right wing media. The top shows, the top podcasters, they are they're all it's all right wing talk. So that's the norm right now. It's not to be democratic. It's not to be leftist. Yeah, in part is the LGBT that was overdone, even though prominent leftists and Democrats won't admit it. But that's part of it, even though it's not the issue that Republicans make it out to be. It was an issue enough to cause people to not vote that Democratic, and they have to come to terms with that. So I'd like to pretty much thank everybody for listening to this round. Sure, I said I was done with politics. To me, this isn't just politics. This is life. This is something is affecting us all. And as a last side note, just from my community, from the church that I belong to, I was a little bit thrown off when I heard them say to pray for Donald Trump and his administration. But the way it was repeated, it was kind of odd because we do always pray for every president and the administration, regardless who it is, regardless if it's your candidate or not. But the way it was reiterated, it seemed a little odd to me. But then I realized it was supposed to be said. It was necessary to be said. And I think the idea is that he might be, or he is such a danger right now that we can make a difference if we pray for him. If we pray for maybe his mental state, his well being, his administration, maybe we can make a difference. That's the way I took it. So that's all I have to say about that for this round. If you tuned in, I appreciate it. A like and a follow go a long way, as I've said before. But thank you all for tuning in. Until next time.